name's Jon Pitts and I'm here with Paul Tapner, winner of badminton in 2010, and Shannon, rider on the World Class Pathway. And what we're going to do is look at the foundation exercises that I use with Fit to Ride, which I give to everybody when they come on a clinic with me. What we're going to do to start with then is just very simply look at how our body adjusts to the balance when we're on the horse. Okay, so we're going to ask the riders if they can just sit on the ball with their feet in front. Okay, and all I want you to do then, from a balance perspective, is just lift one foot off the floor and hold that there. Okay? Now, generally speaking, what we tend to find is that when we sit on the horse, we sit slightly to one side more than the other. When we look at a rider and we ask them to determine where their balance is, in general, most riders tend to sit slightly to the left-hand side of the horse. Now, I haven't asked either of the riders which leg I want them to lift off the floor, but both of them have lifted their right leg off the floor and left their left leg in contact with the ground. Okay, just wanted to relax there. So to explain, basically just like having a dominant hand, we also have a dominant leg, and so when we're performing a skill such as kicking a ball, for instance, we would tend to kick the ball with our right foot and stand on our left leg. When we perform that skill, our brain has a decision, and it's not which leg to perform the skill with, it's which leg do we balance on. Clearly when we ride horses we require balance an awful lot. Okay, so we use this exercise quite a lot so that the rider can start to build up an ability to be able to balance more equally through the hips and the seat bones. So we're going to ask the riders to lift the leg off the floor again, this time no tricks. Okay, and would it be fair to say that lifting one leg off the floor seems easier than the other?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm slightly more wobbly on this side. The ball's moving more underneath me now than when I lifted my right leg.
Okay, and the same for you, Lauren?
Yeah, same with me.
Okay, right, that's good. So just pop that foot back down again. So that's a very simple way of just showing you how the body operates. We strive for symmetry, but unfortunately there are these little bits and pieces that are going on. Now, so by practicing lifting one leg off the floor each time, what we can do is start to get the brain to understand that it can balance with both legs a bit more evenly. The next thing we need to do is to educate the brain to understand that we can use our pelvis, which is the foundation with the horse a lot of the time when we're sat in the saddle. And what we need to do that, if I just ask you to lift one leg off the floor again, okay, you will probably see that when the riders lift their leg up, what they do is they tilt their body to the side. Okay, did you both feel yourselves do that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, just relax back down again. So, we need the brain to engage with the pelvic muscles, the pelvic floor, or the core muscles, which a lot of people talk about as well. The best way I find of doing that is not to think about what they are in terms of the transverse abdominis muscles, but if we think about the muscles we use when we're desperate for a wee. Not the best way of thinking about it, but it's quite a good way because we've all been in that situation before. So what I'm going to ask the riders to do is to think about tightening those muscles in there, really contracting those muscles as if you're desperate for a wee. Okay, try and stay nice and relaxed in your upper body, and then what's going to happen is the ball's going to want to slide under your hips slightly, so try and control that using your pelvic muscles and then lift one leg off the floor. Okay, and hopefully what we should have seen there is that the rider stays slightly more stable in their upper body. Did we both feel that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so essentially the brain is using the right muscles to stabilise the body position. Okay, just relax that leg back down again. So it's quite a detailed exercise, but just practicing lifting one leg off the floor each time, keeping control here, starts to get the brain more educated in how it can use our muscles and keep the ball more stable. Okay, what we must understand as riders is that our head and our torso here is 2/3 of our body weight. And that's really important from the horse's perspective, that we're able to keep that centrally above the horse's centre of balance as well. Okay, so that exercise is very good for working on that. The next exercise we're going to do is the pelvic tilt exercise. For those of you who have done Pilates, you'll be used to doing this lying on your back, tilting your pelvis forward and back. Okay, so we're going to ask the riders to put their hands on their hips, practicing this in a seated position because that's the position we're in on the horse. And all we're going to ask them to do is tilt their pelvis, first of all up at the front so their belly button closes together, and then tilt it completely the other way so their back arches. Okay? Now you probably saw him pull there, that he leant forward quite a lot. That movement underneath needs to be as independent as possible. So that's it, if you tilt back the other way. It's very good from Lauren there, everything's staying nice and still there. Okay, then the other way again. Good, okay, now just to demonstrate that in a slightly different way, what we want to try and do is, if both of you can turn side on. There we are, right, so hands on the hips again. So to start with, if we tilt that pelvis up at the front, okay, and just bring yourself up more upright, other way, that's it. Okay, so if you lift your pelvis up at the front,
Try.
other way, so tilt your pelvis other way.
I wonder how he rides a horse.
That's it, that way. There we go. Okay. Now, so this position here is when we tend to get a slight curve to the back, okay? And that's why sometimes we tend to look like we're sort of sat like a sack of potatoes, which is often the term used. How are we doing over here? Yeah, okay, so now what I want you to do is go all the way the other way so you end up with an arch in your back. This is the other common position we have with riders where there's obviously quite a hollow to their back as well. Ideally what we're looking for is a position midway between the two. So if you can then tilt the pelvis back to that midway position, that's the kind of position where our muscles, our abdominals at the front and our back muscles are working pretty much 50-50. Okay? So by working on these pelvic tilts, what we're doing is we're establishing a good function through that pelvis. Now as you're doing those pelvic tilts, can you feel that maybe the movement isn't quite as smooth? Does it sort of go in stages? Is it a bit juddery?
Yeah, a little bit juddery. So.
When I go this way, it's definitely juddery.
Okay. And that juddering basically is an indication that the function there is not as strong or as smooth as it could be. So as a rider, what we want to happen is the pelvis to move completely independently under, again, this torso, which is 2/3 of our body weight, so that it can accommodate the movement of the horse underneath it. Essentially what we're talking about is the term an independent seat, but to have the function in your pelvis to be able to do that. Moving on to the third and final exercise, which is part of the foundation for Fit to Ride, if we can turn to face the camera again. What we're going to ask the riders to do, if you can put your hands on the side of the ball for me, and then we're just going to push your bottoms back a bit. Okay, feet in contact with the front of the ball and just sit and balance on the ball for me.
It's just a joke.
We are professional riders that are so good at this.
You'd think it would be easy, but actually it's more difficult than it seems. This exercise essentially is the same as learning to ride a bike. We're asking a neurological process in our brain to accommodate the idea of balancing on this ball. Okay? Now, it looks a bit rough and ready to start with, but just like riding a bike, this will happen, this will get better very, very quickly. So, as we're now sort of practicing this now, you'll probably see that the riders are starting to get the hang of it. Hopefully, Lauren.
No, not really.
Okay, and then we're in a position where we can start to sort of sit up a little bit more. Okay, just staying nice and relaxed on the ball.
I can actually do this better if I put my hands in a riding position.
Okay,
Oh, I
good.
can too.
Yep. Good.
Obviously more familiar to our brains.
Okay. Really, really importantly for you to look at from there is that you should be able to see that the brain is keeping this trunk 2/3 of your body weight again, nice and central above the ball, and that the pelvis here is moving around underneath the rider to keep control of the balance. Okay, so again we're asking the brain to coordinate this weight, which ideally we'd like to keep centrally above the horse's centre of balance, nice and still, and the pelvis and the core is having to control that position. Okay, obviously needs a little bit of practice.
I'm on a hill, that's my excuse.
Okay, right. So we would just ask people to do those as often as possible. Those exercises would tie in with the other exercises we do with people on their horses, and these are very good stepping stones for the Fit to Ride course.